On July 12, 1996, Birmingham, Alabama hosted the 10th UFC, codenamed The Tournament. Promotion Management returned the original format of the tournament, the Good Old Eight. At this championship, we await the first appearance of Mark Coleman, who by that time had won almost everything he could in amateur wrestling, and even took part in the '92 Summer Olympic Games. We will also see UFC 8 champion Frye, as well as a finalist from that tournament, Gary Goodridge. This tournament opens with the first pair of quarterfinalists, Mark Hall and Frye. Mark Hall reached the semifinals of UFC 7, earned a victory over a 176-kilogram sumo wrestler at the last tournament, owns the black belt in Muyado, which is a synthesis of techniques taken from Taekwondo, Kung Fu, and Hapkido. He also has black belts in Taekwondo and Karate, even a blue belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. His rival is Frye, nicknamed the Predator, a freestyle wrestler with a good shot after winning the 8th tournament, where it took him only 3 minutes and 10 seconds to pass all his rivals, gaining popularity and notoriety. And here is Bruce Buffer in his Octagon debut as ring announcer. Frye came to this fight with a single defeat, tallying a streak of 4 consecutive victories. Mark Hall starts with a roundhouse kick. You can't surprise Frye with such twists. He simply catches his opponent and throws him to the canvas, where he begins to methodically beat the body. While Mark Hall is figuring out how to get out of this tough spot, Frye, meanwhile, continues to pepper his body with punches. It appears like Mark Hall does not even attempt to change the situation in his favor. Many believe that this was a contractual fight in which Mark Hall was supposed to lose to Frye for a decent monetary reward for the times, which, of course, he never received. In perfect sight, Mark Hall appears to merely accept his fate per the agreement. At the very least, this is a fight that raises a lot of questions. Frye continues his beating. He strikes and strikes. Even a bruise is visible on Mark Hall, which, as it were, emphasizes the reality of this fight, but this is very hard to believe. Big John simply got tired of looking at it and stopped the fight. Frye's victory takes him to the semifinals of the tournament. And my dear viewers, I want to ask you, was there any point for Frye to bribe a fighter like Hall? I want to see your take in the comments below the video. And now the next pair of quarterfinalists. It's Scotty Fiedler against Brian Johnston. Scotty Fiedler was 29 years old, 193 centimeters tall, 106 kilograms, with a kickboxing style. I would like to thank his hairdresser. His rival is Brian Rage Johnston. Johnston was 26, 193 centimeters tall, 100 kilograms, with a black belt in judo, champion of the Golden Gloves, with a kickboxing style. Fiedler starts out with a low kick to the lower leg. Johnston uses his judo skills and throws a couple of good blows. But Fiedler gets behind Johnston, where he attempts an odd chokehold, unsuccessfully. Not a bad strike, but Johnston managed to remove himself from the disadvantage with repeated strikes to Fiedler's head. McCarthy stops the fight in order to protect Scotty Fiedler from injury and that hairstyle. Brian Johnston's TKO victory takes him to the semifinals of the tournament, straight to the meeting with Frye. Up next, Mark Coleman's quarterfinal bout against Moti Horenstein. Coleman was still in college when he found out about the birth of MMA. He watched Royce Gracie in UFC 1 with complete enthusiasm and fell in love with the sport, realizing that even Gracie was able to defeat his foe. Coleman's opponent, Moti Horenstein, was 31 years old, the same age as Coleman, 185 centimeters tall, 105 kilograms, 3-time Israeli karate champion. He was absent wrestling experience altogether, which made it crucial to keep his distance from Coleman, although that was a tall ask. As the fight began, Coleman immediately got down to business and, with ease, transfers the opponent to the floor, takes position, and starts striking Horenstein's head. What can I say here? Horenstein fell into a trap from which there was no way out. Coleman continues to break the defense of his opponent, throwing a multitude of precise strikes to the head. And Big John has had enough. Mark Coleman's TKO victory sends him to the semifinals of the tournament. The last quarterfinal pair was John Campitella versus Gary Goodridge. John Campitella was 27 years old, weighing 106 kilograms, standing at 175 centimeters, and fighting in the American Campo style. His opponent was Gary Big Daddy Goodridge. Prior to starting his career in martial arts, Goodridge worked as a welder at a Honda plant. Goodridge was the 91st World Arm Wrestling Champion and recent owner of an honorary 4th-degree black belt in the art of Kuksilwan Karate for only about a month's time. Campitella immediately confronted Goodridge and attempted to knock him down with punches. A real fight ensued as the fighters stood up, a karate knee kick, clinch, and Campitella throws 2 precise uppercuts, a killing blow to Goodridge's cover. Very dangerous. Big Daddy pulls the opponent to the ground, preventing Campitella from striking, and through his maneuvering, Goodridge arrives in an advantageous position, where he strikes Campitella's open head. McCarthy stops the fight. Gary Goodridge wins by TKO. Campitella disagrees with the referee's decision, to no avail. Gary Goodridge was destined to reach the semifinals. Here are the semifinal bouts. John Frye vs. Brian Johnston, and Mark Coleman vs. Gary Goodridge. John Frye is the first to enter the octagon. Morale is on his side as the audience erupts for Frye. He feels her support and would have every chance to reach the final of this tournament. But it won't be easy, since his rival, Brian Johnston, also has experience in wrestling, not to mention powerful striking. And Johnston's motivation is through the roof. By defeating the champion, he would be bestowed with unmatched notoriety. Frye immediately throws blows to the body, but Johnston was ready for this. The fighters engage in the clinch and mutually attack each other with blows. The clinch continues, as the pair does not want to give in to one another. Frye attacks dangerously with his head, and Johnston immediately responds and does not shrink before the champion, throwing a series of punches. Yes, Johnston really looks good, and Frye, realizing this, decides to transfer his opponent to the ground, a comfortable environment for himself. The Predator controls Johnston, periodically kissing the body. Johnston's functionality began to fail. Reaches the final of the tournament and awaits the winner of Mark Coleman vs. Gary Goodridge. Mark Coleman comes out first. He realizes that he was superior to his rival in wrestling skills, and that Goodridge could hit well and would likely have the upper hand in striking. Therefore, he realized he needed to control the combative habitat. Gary Goodridge, with a relaxed and confident gait, himself moves to the octagon. Goodridge needs to decide the question in the stands, whether he has enough skills to keep Coleman at a distance. Let's take a look. Coleman immediately takes to his strengths, drawing Big Daddy to the floor where he begins attacking, throwing dangerous headbutts to the opponent's face. Coleman made very violent attacks. But despite this, Goodridge finds the strength to rise. He holds onto the cage with his hands. Coleman hits Goodridge's head with dangerous uppercuts behind his back. Big Daddy doesn't want to go back to the ground and starts to save himself by simply moving along the cage, as if he was looking for a way out to avoid a beating. Look at the second in Goodridge's corner, who distracts him with clues. Coleman does not get lost and throws killer blows here. It's becoming scary for Goodridge. Finally, Goodridge decides to answer. He strikes Coleman with his knees, but Coleman takes Goodridge's back and again throws killer blows to the head of Big Daddy, who inexplicably continues to stand at the cage, holding onto it and little else. Finally, Goodridge turns around, and the fight continues in a standing position. Gary Goodridge is very angry. He takes revenge for his suffering. He turns it on, as they say, but Coleman gives more. A few seconds, and Goodridge is back on the floor. How many blows to his head has he missed in this fight? It's scary to even count. Goodridge decides to surrender, as it became difficult for him to continue, and Mark Coleman reaches the final of the tournament, where Frye is rested. And now, the final of UFC 10. Frye vs. Mark Coleman. Coleman made a good debut in MMA, immediately going to the final of the tournament. Remarkably similar, Frye's debut in the 8th tournament led him to the championship. Whether Coleman could repeat Frye's success in his debut, whether Frye would be able to become the UFC champion for the second time, we will soon find out. A real fight ensues in the octagon, in which Coleman takes the champions back, and Coleman pins Frye against the cage, throwing solid punches to Frye's head. Frye tries to defend himself, but Coleman was so energized and determined for this fight, as if he had bet everything he has on the outcome. All or nothing, he seems to reciprocate fate, which gave him a chance to perform at this tournament, and he had no right to let her down. And so Coleman attempts a choke, but Frye counters. The fight continues in a standing position. Frye realizes that Coleman has the advantage and forges ahead, but misses the passage to the body and ends up on the floor. Coleman clearly surpasses his opponent on the ground by a head. The fighters are very tired, and McCarthy stops this fight after 6 minutes. Half of the allotted time has passed, and a short break is taken. Both rivals no longer have the strength, but they have an unbroken will to win and a fighting character. And on this character alone, Frye goes on the offensive. He shows that he cannot be broken. He is eager to win this championship. Coleman, literally on wrestling reflexes, extinguishes this attack. Fighters on the ground. Coleman is in an advantageous position, strikes, and takes Frye's back. But the Predator provides resistance and shows that he is still in the game. Then, with what appeared to be superhuman strength, Coleman simply raises Frye and then shows that he, too, can be very good at being ahead. Absolutely, Frye is not in an enviable position, but shows that he is ready to fight to the end. Coleman, meanwhile, strikes Frye in the head. And Big John McCarthy stops this fight. Coleman looks at Frye and does not quite understand why the fight was stopped, insisting on a continuation of the fight. But it's over. Mark Coleman wins by TKO and becomes the UFC 10 tournament champion. If you like this video and are eager to see even more such tournaments, be sure to press thumbs up, as well as leave your comments. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel. See you at the next tournament. Take care.